Hello, I'm really upset right now because I did do the birth story and pregnancy story for Steven, and the first part of my video did not upload. And then I looked on my computer and it was gone. So I don't know if I deleted it by accident or whatever, so I'm just going to start it over. I tried to record this like 3 times already. Steven's being a complete brat. So, I don't know. I'm just going to put this one up. I'm not going to do it again. So if he starts screaming, crying, hopefully you guys can hear me. I think he just woke up from a nap, so he's kind of irritated a little bit. And you know, I loved him up and everything, but he doesn't want me to touch him or anything right now. So I don't know what's going on. It's a baby thing, I guess. Anyway, back to my story. My pregnancy with Steven was very uneventful. I found out I was pregnant because my nipples were extremely sore. And I was in denial in the beginning. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's my period that's making my nipples sore. And my period's never made my nipples sore. So I don't know why I tried to convince myself. But I was just like, okay, well, maybe my period's coming and that's why my nipples are sore and it's going to go away. And my period was late. My period's never late. It comes at the same time every month. So I was like, okay. I told my husband, I'm like, yeah, my period's late. My nipples are extremely sore, but maybe it's because my period's coming, and maybe it's just taking a little bit longer. And I tried to come up with some reason why my nipples were sore because it was late or something like that. I don't know. And he was like, yeah, okay, we're going to see about that. He was like, you're pregnant. And I'm just like, in denial. I knew I was, but I was in denial. I was like, no, I'm not pregnant. Watch. You know, I'm telling him, like, watch. I'm going to get my period. Long story short, I did not get my period. And I took a pregnancy test. He was there. And when I came out of the bathroom, he was like, oh, it's negative, right? And I was like, no, it's not negative. It's positive. And he was just like, he just kind of smiled and was like, okay, well, we just have to handle it. You have to deal with it. So that was how that went. Most people usually take their pregnancy test and then tell their husbands or their boyfriends or whatever. He was there. He knew right away, and he knew before I took the test. So yeah, pregnancy was uneventful. I didn't really want to eat. For some reason, I didn't want food. I would have like salad and like fruits and stuff, and then I would be like completely turned off. I didn't want food at all. No chicken, no rice, no nothing. I didn't want it. Like, I just didn't want it. My husband would buy me food, and I'd be like, listen, you better eat this or it's going to go in the garbage because I don't want it. I lost a lot of weight, and the doctors told me I had to gain weight or they would put me in the hospital. So I started eating, and it didn't stop after that. I was eating like a hog, and I became this huge, gigantic house. And I loved it, though. I'm pregnant now. But after having Steven, I missed my pregnant belly. I really did. About 3 weeks to a month before I went into labor, I was leaking and I didn't know what to do. I told my mom, who has had 4 kids, including me, and I told her, I'm like, Mom, every time I go to the bathroom and I pull down my pants, it's like my underwear are wet. And she's like, my mother's a clown. She's like, don't tell me that. Tell your husband. I'm like, not wet like that. I'm like, I think something's going on with the baby. And she's like, well, honestly, I think you're rushing it. You're just ready for this baby to be here. You just need to calm down and relax and let the baby come when the baby's ready to come. She's like, it's early. It's not coming yet, Danielle. So I'm like, okay, fine. Cool. Maybe she was trying to convince herself, but because she actually had a premature baby, my sister. But that's another story. So she knew it could come at any time. But I guess she was just kind of trying to convince herself and convince me that we still had time. So, I continued leaking a little bit here and there. It was wet. And then, it really scared me on December 17th because I was at work. And I was going to work till the last day. I mean, if my water broke at work, my water broke at work. Because my job... Oh, you okay? My job, you alright, Steven? Okay. My job does not offer maternity leave. It offers a medical leave, which is, I guess, kind of the same thing, but they only offer you a certain amount of hours away from work. And for me, it was 300 hours. 300 hours is not that much. So I want to spend every second with the baby. So it was like, hey, if this is what you guys are going to do, you only want to offer me 300 hours for maternity leave, then fine. I'm going to stay here and hopefully my water breaks on your shoes. Like, that's how I felt about it. So, yeah. December 17th, I was at work and I was getting ready to leave. And I noticed the chair was extremely wet when I stood up. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not like before. My underwear was just wet. It was like just a little bit of wetness in the crotch of my underwear. I'm like, now the whole chair is wet. Like, did my water break? But I had in my mind, because I watched a lot of videos and I read a lot of things, and I had in my mind that I wanted to labor at home. So I was like, okay, even if my water broke, like, this is just the beginning. I don't need to go to the hospital. So I went home and I let my husband know what was going on, and he was just like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. If this is what you want to do, then this is what we're going to do. It's whatever you want to do. So, yeah, so we waited, and then the next day, I think he was sleeping, and I didn't want to turn the TV on because he was trying to get some sleep. So I went to my mom's room to watch TV because we were living with my mom at the time. And I'm laying in her bed, and I'm just like, something's not right. And I stood up, and her bed was soaked. Now this is why I didn't really didn't think my water broke, because I didn't feel it coming out, but it was there. So it was weird. But anyway, something in her bed, and it's like this big puddle around me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I ran to my husband. I'm like, I think we need to go to the hospital now. But me, I'm still in denial. So I went and I put on my uniform for work, and we headed to the hospital. I was like, oh, they're going to send me to work. They're going to tell me that I'm just losing my mind. So they're probably going to send me to work. I'll make sure I have my uniform on. Yes, baby. So we get to the hospital, and they're like, oh, man, well, have a seat in this wheelchair, and your husband can push you up to the labor and delivery floor so they can check you in and see what's going on. So I sat in the wheelchair, and as soon as I sat down, my freaking water broke. I felt like this flush of freaking water, and it would not stop. Like, even after we got up the elevator, it was just still gushing out. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm telling my husband, I think my water just broke. He's like, oh, yeah, babe. Like, I guess he didn't really believe it. And then when we got up there, the nurse saw me. She was like, weren't you just here Thursday? And I was like, yeah, but I think my water just broke. So she's like, you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. But I think my water just broke. So she's like, okay, stand up and let's see. I stood up, and the chair was freaking soaked. And the nurse and my husband had the same face on. They were both like, oh my God, this is really happening. So the nurse was like, okay, well, she gave me some towels, and she's like, sit down, we'll get you a room right away. My husband started calling everybody, oh my God, the baby's on its way, the baby's coming. He's like all freaking excited and ridiculous. And I was fine in the beginning. I actually had my cousin come up to the hospital and hang out in the room with me. And I'm laughing and we're joking, and then all of a sudden, I wanted to kill everybody in the room. Like, I felt this pain that I've never felt in my life. And I'm just like, why does this hurt so much? Why does this hurt so much? I'm just freaking out. Like, oh my God, this is painful. Like, this is crazy. So as soon as that started, my cousin was like, I think I'm going to leave. So I was like, oh, I want my mother here. So my cousin was there. My mom was at home watching my little brother. She said she couldn't come because she had no one to watch my little brother. So my cousin was like, well, I'll come over, watch the baby, and then you go. Well, not the baby, but he's young, too young to stay home by himself. So she was like, I'll come over and watch Omar. That's my brother's name. And she was like, you come to the hospital with Danielle. So between that, I have no idea what happened, because I was like in so much freaking pain that I told them they had to give me something, and they knocked me out. I just remember waking up to my mother's voice, and she said that I kept pointing at her, and she's like, what did you guys give her? Like, she's completely knocked out. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't like the way she looks. I remember her saying that. And I do kind of remember trying to talk to her, but I don't really remember. And she was like, I just kept pointing at her or whatever. So, yeah. So that's the first part of the video. You can watch the second part of the video. I talk about the whole birth and everything. All right. Have a good day.